2020. It's a new year. And though a shit year at that, y'all know what that means. Meet the Artist 2020 edition. I've been drawing one of these every year since I was 15, so we now have 4 years of Meet the Artist in total, and may I just say, damn. It is nice to see that improvement. Being real, I've been putting off making a new one for a while now. Seriously, I think I was scheduled for a new MTA around April or May, but after last year's, I was like, that's it. I've peaked. I'll never be able to top this Meet the Artist. This is the best I can do, and it's all gonna go downhill from here. But as the months have gone on, I've found small things I don't like about it. Don't get me wrong, it was a nice chibi, but I realized my style has changed so much since I drew it, and I also managed to whitewash myself again. It's something that people have gotten on me for in the past, and seriously, it's an accident. It's not intentional. I'm actually very comfortable with who I am and in my own skin, but newsflash, I'm also a fucking eggplant, and although a person of color, I refuse to step out of my little comfort zone that is drawing fair skin, because I don't know why fair skin is just easier for me to paint. It's not an excuse, but like I said, I'm an eggplant. Anyway, popping off that tangent, hi, my name is Kai. I'm an 18-year-old digital artist. I'm turning 19 on November 9th of this year, and I have a caffeine addiction. That's all you really need to know. In this video, I'm going to talk about me, some new stuff, explain some things, and basically just update last year's video on art. If you watched last year's video, or you're one of my regulars on Discord, you're probably going to know most, if not all of this already, but, you know, it's a new year, why not? Diving into it, I am a Portuguese, Hawaiian, Asian whammon, and a lot of my interests derive from these things, from these cultures. I take a lot of inspiration in my art and storytelling from them, but just to be clear, I don't mean Portuguese as in Portuguese from Portugal or Portuguese from Brazil. I mean Portuguese Hawaiian, completely different culture altogether, just putting that out there for clarity. I grew up as a child of a man in the military. My dad has been in the service since before I was born, and I'm very proud of him because he's worked so hard, and he made Master Chief this year, which, I mean, I know most of you don't know what that means, but it's a pretty big thing for him to go from working food service to a fucking command position. And again, I know a lot of you aren't going to know what that means, but it's pretty cool. So with all of his hard work also meant some work for my family, meaning, you know, being dragged around every 2 to 3 years. I've moved from Hawaii to Guam to Hawaii to South Carolina to Hawaii to Ketchikan, Alaska to Juneau, Alaska, went to college in Portland for a year, and now I'm living in Virginia. I've moved 9 times in my life, seen a lot of shit, done a lot of shit, good shit, bad shit, stupid shit. I've been living a roller coaster for the past 18 years. You guys will notice when talking to me, or sometimes even in my videos, I will slip into Pidgin Hawaiian, especially when I'm excited or angry. For some reason, the word y'all has made a permanent space of residence in my vocabulary, and overall, my word choice is different from a lot of people's. I attribute that a lot to how much I've moved around and things I've been exposed to. You really do pick up things from everywhere when you move everywhere. Even though I've been all over the... Oh, pop! Even though I've been all over the place, in total, I've spent the most time in Alaska and Hawaii, and honestly, I think it shows, especially the Alaska part. Just to give you guys an example, I didn't know hanging out at malls was a thing people actually did, because in Alaska, there aren't any malls to hang out at. I genuinely thought that going to the mall with your friends after school, or meeting up at the mall and hanging out there for a few hours, I thought that was a movie trope, but that's what happens when you spend your teenage years in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. So moving around, making and keeping friends was a pain in the ass, as it is for most military brats, and eventually I ended up in Ketchikan, Alaska. Ketchikan was way different from the other places I'd moved. For starters, it was in fucking Alaska. Like, everywhere else my family had lived in was tropical, hotter temperature, and nice, and that's not to say Alaska isn't nice, but in Alaska we actually found out that I'm allergic to the cold, like legitimately allergic to the cold. It's a real medical condition, and I really wish I was making that up. But anything below freezing, which it often gets in Alaska, it just makes my immune system do some funky fresh vibes, and Alaska was not a vibe. And the other thing about Alaska, we lived out in the sticks. We were the last house on our street of 5 houses, all with at least a football field's length in between, and all the way outside of town, so basically in the middle of bear country. And again, my family only lived in places where the predators, you could probably outrun them. Mongoose, fine, it's a fucking, like, long gerbil. Snake, no legs, just run, easy kind. So Ketch changed a lot of things for me. It wasn't really a place I could play outside in, at least not without being in danger, whether that be having a fucking allergy attack or being attacked by a bear. I had none of my schoolmates around, and basically no one my age was in our area. I think my closest school friend was 3 miles away. And so it was either walk in the cold and break out in hives in the winter when the bears are sleeping, or go out during bear season and get... We did not like bears, even... I could go into so many stories about bears right now. Anyway, tangents. Because of Ketchikan, for the first time, I became an indoor kid, and that's where everything didn't go so well. 1, vitamin D deficiency in a 12 to 13-year-old is just begging for depression among a bunch of other health issues. 2, I was diagnosed with PCOS, and for those of you who don't know what that is, you're lucky, because it's a shitty hormonal thing that turned puberty into puberty squared, and coupled with the vitamin D, I think you can see where that's going. And 3, drama at school and my family life definitely wasn't the easiest, so I had this trifecta of bullshit. So with these things combined, I picked up a small interest in art, which was very, very strange actually, because as a kid living in Hawaii, and I can recall this clearly, I was convinced I was not a creative type. I had friends who could draw insanely well, at least in my eyes as like a 10-year-old who didn't draw. And looking at their stuff, I was like, man, there's no way I can do that. I'm just gonna be a doctor. But when Ketchikan happened, art was a nice little escape when I didn't want to play video games. I'd often take pictures of flowers and landscapes and go home and sketch or paint them, but really I didn't have a clear goal in mind when I was doing it, and I would honestly really only draw or paint maybe like 1 to 2 times a month, if that. So generally, while that kind of pushed me towards art, I don't really consider it the main part of my art journey. After Ketchikan came Juno, and Juno is really where it all began. Christmas of 2015, 16, it has to be one of those 2 years. My parents bought me my first art tablet. It was one of those small, shitty Wacom's, and from there I just took off. And I don't like admitting this next part, so get ready for some tea. I was in the Pokemon roleplay fandom, and I was a mess. But it got me into art, so we're thankful for that weird phase. I met a lot of artists on Tumblr through that fandom actually, and they inspired me to draw, and also kind of pointed me in the right direction. Constantly getting constructive feedback, I was in a good environment for growth, and that's where I started blossoming. That's where I started drawing 8+ hours a day, figure studies, watching tutorials, doing everything I could to soak up information. Video games became a whole new experience for me as I realized that, damn, this is the work of a team of artists. This shit didn't just happen, it was made, it was created, it was passion. And at the time, as a sophomore in high school, I definitely didn't know it was going to lead me to where I am today. Honestly, I think even sophomore me would be like, this is cool, but dude, what the fuck? Art completely changed my high school experience. High school, I'm not gonna lie, I barely got through, at least in my eyes, because anything below a B for me is panic time. Even below an A, I used to flip my shit. But eventually, I just stopped caring about school and really only cared about art. My test scores were great, test scores were fine, it was just homework. I wasn't willing to sacrifice art time for homework time, and that was a huge mistake. Please, if you are still in high school, learn from my bullshit. Do not put anything else before school. Set yourself up for success and scholarships and work hard, because what I did just wasn't smart. And the lack of good grades also really had my parents on my ass, which is, you know, to be expected. And it didn't get any better when I told them I no longer wanted to go into the medical field. I told them I wanted to work toward being an artist. And there was quite a bit of pushback at first. They kept trying to talk me out of it, which, you know, is to be expected for most parents when you're trying to go into a career like art. They told me to keep it as a hobby, and I almost listened to them. But eventually my friends and my band teacher of all people, flat out told me, it's your life, do with it what you will. So I did. I kept working at art as hard as I could and building up as much skill as possible, which eventually led to me making one piece in particular that my mom looked at and she was like, yeah, okay, this is definitely something you can do. That looks like it belongs as a loading screen for a video game. We'll support you. So even though I did that stupid shit in school, you know, neglecting my grades, it still led me to where I am today, and truthfully, I'm very happy with where I'm at. I just finished my first year in art school at Pacific Northwest College of Arts, and I'm not going back. The environment of the school, honestly, I don't think it was what I was looking for. For a small school, there was a surprising amount of toxicity that I just didn't need or want in my life, and especially the quality of education there wasn't what I was expecting. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice school, they do have a lot of nice professors, but for me, personally, the kind of person I am, with my wants and needs, it wasn't my thing. So we're taking the year off this year, and I'm putting off in quotes because I'm still going to community college, I'm still going to be working. My plan is to take this year to knock out some liberal arts courses like math, science, history, all that stuff. and I'm gonna build up the best fucking art portfolio I possibly can, and I'm gonna apply to the top schools in the US. I'm talking RISD, SCAD, Art Center, CalArts. I'm gonna shoot my shot, and I'm not settling for anything less than the best. So there we go, 2020 Meet the Artist. Let's shoot for a good year, guys. And small heads up, I am participating in Art Fight this year on Team Sugar, so if you're also in Art Fight, please feel free to comment your username down below, and I'd love to make some art for you. Like, comment, sub, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay artsy.